Hello, everybody. This is Rob Fredette with the podcast Hodgepod. Another special guest on my podcast for this episode 171, and I cannot wait to talk to Debbie DiMaggio. She is a Amazon best-selling author. She's a TEDx speaker. She recently came out with a book called Mindset in Motion, and that's piqued my interest. And she also has a podcast, Mastering the Art of Success. And also she's like in the, get this, top 1% in real estate professionals. She's dedicated her career to helping individuals and organizations embrace change, which is good, build resiliency, and achieve meaningful success. And Debbie DiMaggio, thank you so much for joining my podcast. I can't wait to talk to you.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so talk about a little bit how you got into real estate and your career, because you're out in California, and talk about that. How did you get into that? And we have a lot of other stuff to talk about. So again, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Well, I always like to lead with, because the first thing I always ask my guests is, how'd you get into what you did today? Did you know what you were going to do today when you were growing up? And everyone usually says the same thing. No, I had no idea. The only thing I knew I did not want to do when I was growing up was real estate. And now 35 years later, I am in real estate. And I can tell you why. I mean, there was a story behind that, but my dad was in real estate. He bought and sold. He didn't do residential like I do. But I'm a control freak. I do not like a boss. I like to work hard. And so it just I couldn't have a boss. And now looking back, I was actually pretty young starting in real estate. At the time, I was so frustrated between 21 and 26 going, what am I going to do? What's the purpose of my life? I really wanted some meaning and purpose in my life. I didn't want to just get married and have kids, although I do and I love that. But I also wanted to have a career, and I wanted to have just a full life and doing. So I clearly have that now.
Yeah, I guess so. Top 1%. That's an amazing accomplishment. So talk about like the real estate market now. We're in 2026. It's changed quite a bit. Interest rates are high. How is the real estate market now versus probably say 2 or 3 years ago?
Well, it's kind of funny. I just spoke at Inman, our Luxury Connect in real estate. It's one of the premier conferences, and I was lucky enough and fortunate enough to speak at it. And as realtors, we're in the trenches day in and day out. We're living it. We're not living the news. The news reports it after the fact. When we are literally in the trenches, and we know what's happening second by second, because other agents from other companies that will get an email, price reduced. Didn't sell. I'm surprised it didn't sell, or price adjustment, so we're seeing that coming in real time. So after I got back from the conference, I heard, not a fan of Zillow, but the chief, whatever, said the same thing we preach to our clients. And it is, if a home is properly prepared for market, if they do the painting, they change the light fixtures, if countertops need to be changed, if they put it on the market the way it should, it will sell. And if they look at the comps today and price it what the comps are today, which is because of the internet, because of how life has changed, everything is out there to the public to see. So you can't put a price on something when everyone can see that this is the value of the house today, not 2 years ago. So if you follow your agent's advice, I mean, we want the house to sell as you do, and it doesn't make sense for any of us to hold a house that's not priced right. So it's about pricing, and your house will get sold. And for buyers, when the market is down and it's quiet, summertime is a little quiet for us. The holidays are quiet. That's the time for a buyer to go in, even when rates are high. I've never been so emphatic was the last couple of years when rates were high. And our lender always says, date the rate, marry the house. What that means is, and it took me a while, he would say it, and I'm like, what does that mean? Anyway, if rates are high, it doesn't matter. They will come down. So find the house, get the house when there's little to no competition, and then refinance later.
Yeah, perfect. Yes. I remember a couple of years ago, the subdivision I lived in outside of Memphis, there were people outbidding each other even before the house went in the market, and there were people bidding higher prices, and it wasn't even on the market for like hours. It was just like, it was incredible. Like because I don't know what it was going on around here in Memphis, but people were trying to outbid each other for the houses. Is that something that you've seen too?
Yeah, we've seen that for so long here in the San Francisco East Bay and a lot of California. But the thing is, when the rates were high and buyers, for some reason, they like to follow the herd. So a lot of buyers weren't, when the rates went up and no one was really making decisions and no one was, fewer buyers were making offers. I would never forget this. My 30-year-old clients, they totally got it, and they got a house at a great price, and it's since gone up in like a year, but they were smart. They bought when their interest rates were higher, when there was limited activity. They didn't have multiple offers, and they got a great house in a great neighborhood. So yes, why wait for all the people to come back from summer, and why wait for the interest rates to go down? Because now you're going to pay a higher price. You just said it yourself. There are all these people looking to buy the same house, and that means the price is going to go up. So, yeah, it doesn't make any sense, but
It, it's very competitive. I can tell you that it's very competitive. It's amazing. You've written a book that just came out recently. You've authored a few other books, but called Mindset in Motion. And while preparing for this, I haven't gotten the book, but I will get it because it kind of like piqued my interest a little bit. Talk about that, because I haven't heard something about mindset. I've heard about focus. I've heard about challenges, motivation. I'm the type of person in the industry I work in. I'm a grinder, so it takes me a little bit more time to get momentum, but when I do, it works well.
right.
Talk about the mindset, because in order to be successful, you have to have a mindset, but
Yeah,
give a definition of mindset.
sure. So, it's funny. Mindset in motion, activate purpose, power, and peak performance. Now, mindset plays my whole life. It's everything is a mindset. It's with the real estate market, it's a mindset. Okay, are you going to just go into negativity and say, if you're an agent, oh, it's a hard market and make up all these excuses? No, this is when you get working harder. This is when you start reaching out to people. This is when you start educating people. This is when you take the time to meet your clients and friends for coffee. That is not a time to rest on your laurels. So it's a mindset, but we have a lot of times people, whether in business or in real estate, whatever it is, if the economy's not going right, they just, kind of get into that slump. I'm the opposite. I go hard the other way. But let me tell you it's so funny how it all happened. So a year ago, March, I ran the LA Marathon on mindset. That was a year before this book was an idea. I had no intention of writing a sixth book. So a year before, my son told us, we were sitting in St. Bart, and I have to say that it was there because it was so opposite from what he told us why we were sitting there at a beautiful beach club. We were sitting in St. Bart having a great family trip. Kids are in their 30s. So I was so happy as a Sicilian mother to have my kids with me and just having the time of my life. I had them all for a week, my two kids and my husband. And our son, right in the middle of lunch, said, I'm leaving in January for OCS. And I said, what's OCS? And he said, Officer Candidate School. And I said, what's that? I did not know. And he replied, the Marines. Well, of course, I knew what the Marines was. So I went on this journey of like, before I got to regain my composure, I'm like, why? Like that's never been part of just any conversation we've
Mhm.
ever had. And he said 5 words that changed my life forever. I want to challenge myself. So I didn't understand what that meant. I was like, what does that mean? What does that really mean to challenge yourself? I've done a lot of things. We launched a real estate business during the 2008, 2009 recession. I've had a successful 35-year real estate career through good markets and bad markets. I had a cancer diagnosis, so I lived through quite a few things, but I really didn't understand what he was trying to do. So I started immersing myself in the mindset of a Navy SEAL, of a military soldier. What did that mean? I know they have to be physically fit, but I also believe there is such a crazy mindset that they have to have in that discipline. And so I started reading books and watching YouTube videos on everything having to do with mindset. And as things were, David Goggins' book came into my vortex, and I did not know. Do you know who he is?
No, I did. I think I watched one of your episodes. He was on your podcast,
No,
right?
no, he hasn't. I definitely need to get him, but he's famous. And I didn't know who he was. His name's David Goggins. And I read his book, and he overcame so much. He was 350 pounds. He had no family support, on and on and on. So as I read his book, I was like, wow, that is crazy. And so I just, as I was reading the book, I realized now what I was creating was the mindset in motion method. But I had decided to run a marathon. I wasn't a runner, but I decided to run the LA Marathon on mindset. I did not tell anyone because I didn't want people to, they'd be like, you're crazy. You're going to be 60. You don't run. You don't eat that great. You're like, "Oh, how, why?" And so I didn't want to share it with anyone. And only 5 days before I left for LA, I told my husband, you have to come with me because I don't know what could happen. I have no idea because I've never done it. And so I did it, and it was very interesting. So a year later, when I actually wanted to do a TED Talk, I started taking a course for a TED Talk on this one day. And then I woke up the next morning and I said, I can't write a TED Talk. I can't do a TED Talk until I know exactly what I want to talk about. And I have to speak through the heart. I can't just memorize something. I have to talk whatever it is from my heart. So then I decided to write a book, and then I was doing as I do, just start writing stream of consciousness. Long and the short of it, what I did was I came up with the mindset in motion method, 5 steps. And I'll give you the 5 steps in relation to the marathon. And I reverse engineered how I had achieved all my goals throughout my life. And this is how I came up with the method. Every goal that I've ever done, or when I'm talking to someone, and if you were to give me a goal today, I would be able to put it into those five
Hmm.
steps. So the first step is you have to have a goal. Be very clear on your goal. Don't make it complicated, but be very clear. My goal was simple: cross the finish line. Second is believe. Believe you can do it. And that's it. I believed I would finish the marathon. Didn't know how, but I believed it. And then the third is to internalize. And this is where and I'm telling you about this a year prior to even coming
Hmm.
up with this method. So I literally saw myself going over that finish line. I felt the emotion, the exhaustion, the victory. I saw myself doing it. Now, this became my TED Talk 2 years later
Wow.
because something that happened to get me into a TED Talk. But I talked in the TED Talk, I elaborated and I said, that's not positive thinking, it's neuroscience. When your mind starts rehearsing success before it even happens, I mean, when you start visually seeing yourself succeeding, that's when your brain starts rehearsing before you even experience the activity. And so I was doing it. I just kept seeing myself hundreds of times. That was my training. I literally kept
Hmm.
visualizing. So the fourth step is share with supportive people. And some goals you can't share with some people because they will force their limitations and their beliefs onto you. So I know I was going to be 60 and people would be like, oh, you're crazy. Why are you doing that? Blah, blah, blah. And I didn't want to hear that. So I didn't want to tell anyone. And so the fifth step is activate. And activate is the part where most dreams die. Most people can go through all the steps I just gave you, but when it comes to activate, that's where the hard work goes in, right? And so my activation, I did a few races beforehand. I'd never run as far as a marathon, but I did work on my mindset. And it was just a lot of internalization, a lot of visualization, a lot of reading, and trying to understand the mindset of a military soldier. And that's how I did it. And that's how the book was born. And then I have a lot of examples in the book
Hmm.
about that. Plus, in the book, I break it down into 3 steps: the pre-game, the game, and the end game. But before I go on, do you have any questions about the method?
Well, yeah. So, activate is probably the most important one, like you said, because you actually have to put all the 4 steps into action. And it could be fight or flight, right? For somebody like fear of failure. And I think failure is good because you can achieve success through failure. Uh,
Absolutely.
and I think the fifth one is the most important one because if you don't activate the previous 4 steps that you've been thinking about, then you could possibly be, down the road, you probably say, I regret not doing it. So you don't want to have any regrets. I
Right.
think what I'm trying to say.
Yes. And one of the things too is because I'm such I every time I say I'm gonna do something, I have to do it. I'm so controlling and to my own self that way. I'm gonna tell you a little something about the marathon where most people don't. I didn't know because I'm not a marathon runner, but a friend said to me when I was telling him my story, he said, how is mile 18? And I said, okay, that's creepy. How do you know about mile 18? How do you know how I felt in mile 18? I'm like, and he said, because I have friends who are marathon runners in mile 18, there's a thing that happens. And I said, well, let me tell you what happened. And so this is when your body and your mind start negotiating. It's just a thing. And so my conversation with me went like this. You can stop now. No one would care. Why do you have to finish? And then this is when I realized what we internally no, this is when I realized mindset isn't motivational, it's instructional. What we tell ourselves internally are commands. So then the conversation, literally, I can tell you where I was when I was having this
Uh-huh.
conversation. All of a sudden I said, instead of saying, you can quit, you don't have to you can stop, it went like, "You always finish what you begin. You will complete this race. No is not an option." And that's just my whole thing about life. And I was fine. I was probably tired, but I said and then what happened with me, which was different, I said, I stopped running for myself and I started running for people who could not run. That's how I reframed it, and with that, gratitude became my fuel, and there was no stopping me. So hours later, I crossed the finish line, and now I'm adding a piece. Well, because now I did the TED Talk a year later based on the marathon because of so many conversations and people thought it was a big deal, which I didn't. I wasn't gonna share it with a lot of people. It was just something I needed to prove to
Mhm.
myself. But when I crossed the finish line and I burst into tears, I realized what my son had given me, I want to challenge myself, wasn't about the Marines, it was about possibility. So that was my lesson in that whole thing. But I do wanna go back to what you said about, some people might not activate because of excuses or I'm not going to be able to do it. But that's what I call the pivot and adjust. And so watching my son play lacrosse all his life, I'm a writer and my mind is always writing stories. I'll watch a movie and I'm starting to write stories. I'm watching him on the lacrosse field and I used to see him pivot and adjust all the time. He was always pivoting and adjusting.
Yeah,
And so I would say that's in life and in the boardroom and whatever in business, we always have to pivot and adjust. So at least what I tell people is just get into motion, get into momentum. Like you were saying, you had to get into your groove so you can achieve or accomplish what you'd like to accomplish. But sometimes we are going one direction, like my direction was to do a TED talk. And then I woke up the next morning and I was like, oh, I got to write a book. So that was a year detour. But at least I was going somewhere and it's okay. So
mhm.
try just whatever it is, try because it might not work, but you might pivot somewhere else and something else might happen. So just get into motion. And one of the things, simple things is I tell people, even if you wake up one day and you're feeling depressed or the market's down or you're stuck, whatever it is, you're not feeling great, get up, get dressed, get out and start interacting because you never know who's going to come into your path, what conversation might be sparked that day, but I guarantee something will change rather than you sitting at home.
I agree. And I've said this many times on my podcast. I say it every day. Every day's a gift, no matter how bad it is. You could have a horrible day. Every day's a gift because we don't know how much longer we have on this earth, but every
Right.
day is a gift. So you have to treat it as that. And as you were saying that, your 5 steps, I'm I'll be 61 in a couple of weeks, and I've been a spin instructor for 15
Oh,
years
nice.
and a group exercise instructor as well, but I had to get recertified. Years ago, I took one and I didn't pass. So this time I had to pass, and the goal was to pass. I believed I could do it. I
Yeah.
internalized what I had to do because I had to internalize my studying every day. I
Yep.
had my wife to support me and help me with my studying. And then the activation was taking the test, and I passed.
I love it.
I just thought of that just now, and I had some unfinished business about I wanted to pass this test, but I studied in 35 days. I studied literally, I'm not kidding, 100 hours. I got up in the morning and at night and about exercise, muscles, action. So I passed. So
Good
that's,
for you.
I was just, I went as you gave, I wrote them down and then that's exactly what I did. I didn't even know I was doing it until I saw it.
Right. Exactly. I mean, and that's what I did. I just kept going, what's the pattern throughout my life? How did I get there? And everything just went right into that. And then I think what happens is, and this is my goal, I believe this book is a movement, not just a book. It's a movement. It's like I said, anyone who has a goal, if it's like, oh, I have a goal, I want to do this. Well, yeah, that's big, right? You haven't broken it down. But if you write it out into those steps, it makes it more clear. It's like writing, I always tell everyone, start with just writing. It doesn't have to be coherent. Just write and write and write and just process and get it out. What is it you want to do? And put some ideas, but don't get too tied down on, is this right or that right? Or, don't beat yourself up. Just get it out there. But if you try to put it into those steps, you're like, oh, I accomplished this. Okay, my goal is clear now. I mean, I sit down with people now all the time and I'm like, if you're ready, I'll work with you. Get a pen, and because I'm going to give you some ideas, and then they have to execute. And that's the activation part. And sometimes people don't activate. And it's okay, pivot and go somewhere else.
Yeah, exactly. And, sometimes when we're working, I'm sure I've had many failures in my life and I've always succeeded. And I use those failures to motivate me every
Yes.
day. And I had a superior tell me one time, I had a really about 10, 12 years ago, went through a rough patch for about 2 months. And he came to visit and we had coffee at Starbucks. And he asked me how I was doing. I said, I'm doing good. And he said, it has stuck with me in my mind, no matter how bad anything gets, feel sorry for yourself for 5 minutes and move on. And that's the pivot. So
Yeah. Yes.
you can feel sorry for yourself for 5 minutes, but after that, you got to forget about it and move on. So I do that. And, you also learn from people that in your life that have been, have been mentoring you, you think
Right.
about what they did. Is that something that you've done as well?
Oh, mentorship is huge. But let me go back to that depression part for a second. So we all go through chapters and different stages in our life, and we'll continue on the older we get. And I went through the empty nest, and that was very difficult for me. I was very sad when my daughter left and then my son left, and that was really difficult. So I didn't even know I was doing it, but I just kept creating things. I did an Instagram post for 100 days, 100 days of the empty nest. And every day I made myself, what could I do today? Whether it was spray painting furniture or going up to a polo match with my husband on the weekend, or, and not working because we're such workaholics. I put care packages for three of my son's friends, and sent them. I mean, it could have been a little thing or a big thing, but I had to do something even small every day. I had to use my mind to think, what can I do today? I'm not, the kids aren't there for me to take care of. And then of course I have work, but I really used my mind to come up with, what could I do today? I took a boxing class, and I inspired people who watched me. I remember I got a photo from this couple and they're like, we're taking boxing because of you. I'm like, and I was trying to heal myself of the empty nest. So it's so important to just, figure it out. But yes, feel sorry for a minute, but then figure out what you can do. I also want to go, you said something else. I'm such an interviewer, I can't help it. So you said about you learn more from your failures, right? So I said my book is in three parts: the beginning of the game, the preparing for the game or work or whatever it is, or the day, the middle of the game, and the end of the game. And we learn more from our failures than we do our win. Just like, you win a sports game and you're cheering and happy and you go and celebrate, but when you lose, how much goes into the discussion after the game because you lost, right? So you do learn so much more. So whether you win or lose, it's, you're going to learn lessons, but you do learn more from your failures.
Yes, and I played basketball in high school. We had a very, very, very good team. We won a lot of games, and I can remember each loss, how we lost that game. I don't remember any of the wins, but I remember
Oh,
how we lost each of those games 40 years after I played.
yeah,
I remember the scores because it drove us to do better. And
right.
So exactly. Failure is good. You
Yeah.
just got to channel that energy to, I guess, I don't know, channel it to get motivation, get challenge
And
yourself.
figure out how you're going to do better next time. It's a big lesson. And like, how could I do that? What could I have done differently? But yeah, basketball kind of comes to mind when I talk about that for some reason. So that's good.
So you got on your book for the Mindset in Motion. Wow, get ready. You've had 5-star ratings on that book, and I read some of the ratings, and people
Oh,
can't put the book down.
it's pretty amazing. I mean, I really didn't expect it. The other books were kind of because the empty nest, they kind of happened, and it wasn't anything I wanted to do, the real estate books and things, and they
Mhm.
just kind of happened. This book, when it was done, I mean, I always have to do something for other people. And I was like, and I've been mentoring my son and my daughter and their friends over the years and real estate agents and really anyone who people know I just have that innate I just am able to help people. And so people with random different questions would come to me. And I just really have that desire to help people. And I really feel like if people read this book and implement and activate, it could help them. And I just got back from South Africa. And of course, if anyone asks me if they have a question or if they need help in something, I usually have an answer. I don't think yet, knock on wood, I haven't been able to answer someone to give them some advice to execute on something.
Mhm. Go back to the running the LA Marathon because I'm not a runner. That's why I keep fit.
Neither am I.
I can't run. I've never been a runner. I did run when I played sports, but I'm just not one to run like even a mile. I can't even run. So what made you switch? I know you talked about that. What was it like when you started running, and did it come easy for you? And then as you prepared for the marathon and you said you were very emotional after running the marathon, what was that like starting to run and then, you know, minutes before you started racing and then
Yeah.
what was that like?
Well, first of all, I'm not really a runner, and a young man, just said, "You don't run for a hobby," because I hadn't run for a year and a half, and I just ran a half marathon 2 weeks ago. And when I was talking to the young man, he said, "Wait, you don't run as a hobby?" I said, "No, I hadn't run for a year and a half." And then I was looking for I bought like a thing for my phone and I couldn't remember the last time I ran. And it had been 2 months prior that I ran on pavement. And then I decided on 4th of July I would run a 10K. And then a couple weeks later I ran a marathon, but there was no training in between at all.
Really?
This was recently. So there was no train. When I was in South Africa, I ran a little bit on the 5K on the treadmill, but it was really more for processing what I was learning when I was there. So that's only recently in the last year. Just started in the last year and a half. There's something I'll share and the reason why I started running again after a year and a half. But I can't say I'm running. I did a 10K and I did a half marathon, but I really haven't been training. So and it felt fine. I didn't feel music helps me. I have to run with music.
Mm.
During the half marathon 2 weeks ago, my husband was watching. I guess you can see when you go through the gate, and he can tell, he could track me. He said at mile 8, I ran a 7-minute mile,
Wow.
and I'm not kidding when I say I don't run. I hadn't run in a year and a half until I ran the 10K on the 4th of July, and then I hadn't run. So I said, "Well, I know exactly when that happened. And there was a hill in there, San Francisco. If you know San Francisco, it's not flat. It was right when my favorite Coldplay song came on, and I just got pumped. And so I'm going to be running again soon, and I need to get my son to get my playlist where it's all fast songs because I can't be fumbling around, and it always slows me down when I'm trying to get on my phone and try to get the music going. But for me, it's music. And I just read this recently. The first mile, second mile, you're like, okay, this is boring. Why am I doing that? And then for some reason, and this happened to me the other day, and then I read about it. But the first mile two, it's kind of like, why am I doing this? This is boring. Then all of a sudden, you kind of kick in on mile 3, and then The other time when I was running the marathon, for me, my only goal was cross the finish line. I didn't have any other goal because that's what I just wanted to be able to finish it. But for this race, I thought, maybe this is different now. It's a year and a half later. I'm thinking maybe I should try to, run it within a good time. And I did it in the 13 and a half miles in 2 hours and 5 minutes. And the young 23-year-old, he got me 10 minutes ahead of time, maybe a little less than 10 minutes ahead of time. But I noticed what I was doing. So I can give you some pointers what I learned this time. I didn't learn anything the first time because I wasn't really doing it for that. This time I realized I was breaking it down with my son, and I said, well, the music was off. It needs to be fast music all the time. And the second thing is I hate being cold. So I always have a big oversized jacket on. And I realized, so my son said, basically, you're wearing a parachute that's holding you back. So I noticed when I tucked in the jacket, but my phone didn't, misplaced my fanny pack. So I tucked that into my pants, and I noticed that I had more more freedom to run. So this next time, my son and I told him, my son doesn't run either. He's like me. I said, Chase, why don't we go run the marathon in Santa Rosa in 2 weeks? So he said yes. So once I get it in my head, so my goal was so I thought, oh, run the 10K. How do I feel? Okay, good. Did the half marathon. Yep. I was pavement definitely is hard on
Yeah.
your body. And then now I'm going to go do the marathon. And I haven't been running I haven't run since the half marathon. And hopefully I'll get to the treadmill. I just really feel it's a mindset with me. I will tell you after the marathon how I felt. I kept checking my body, like, how does my head feel? How does my stomach feel? I remember when I was younger, I would get cramps in my stomach. I was probably drinking water or doing something. So I was always afraid of getting a cramp when I would run this race. And then what I noticed was a lot of people were able to walk and run, and I didn't train, so I didn't know anything about that, but I was not able to walk and run. I had to run the whole time, even though my body was slower, of course, towards the end. But when I walked, the top of my thighs were really sore. So I had to keep moving them up and down. And then when I crossed the finish line, I was like, and stopped, I was like, oh my God, the top of my thighs are killing me. And they were sore for a couple days, but it was almost like childbirth. 2 days later, 3 days, not more than 3 days later, I said, well, I could do that again.
Man, you know, what's your favorite Coldplay song?
What is it? Viva la vida.
Yeah. Oh man, when that song came out, I remember when that 2008, 2009. Man, that song was rock.
I should just listen to it the entire marathon because I never get tired of it. And I did a 7-minute mile, which was insane. That was on mile 8.
Well, if you need some pointers for fast paced rock and roll,
Yes.
Metallica, Led Zeppelin, Def Leppard, Van Halen.
Okay,
Fast
no,
paced.
those are my worst songs, worst bands. My husband likes them. Oh, no.
Enter Sandman will get you going.
Oh my
That's
God.
awesome. The music is everything too.
Oh,
Music is
I
so
have to
important.
tell. Yeah, no, the music is, some people don't run with anything. So what I didn't know, so before the marathon, my training was, I figure I'm just like, just do. I always throw myself. When I started my
Uh,
podcast, I'm like, I'm just going to go live. So I've always done a live podcast, and that's the only way. And I'm I have no screen presence at all, but I just launched myself and put myself in the fire. So before I ran the marathon, it wasn't a plan to run the marathon. I had a goal by my 60th birthday in July to run a half marathon, but I started after we got back from St. Bart's. It was December 31st when I ran out the door to, just process what Chase had said about I want to challenge myself. And then I did a 10K. My first race was a 10K. But I wasn't running as a hobby in between. So I ran a 10K, and then I did a few more 10Ks. And then I decided to do a half marathon trail run, which I had no idea that was extremely hard. You're up and down, and it's like, and I was passing 30-year-olds. And again, my mind is like, you're going to finish. A week or two later, I got a ribbon in the mail and I thought, okay, this is a joke. I'm serious. Like, is this like all the kids now get a juice box and an orange slice? I'm like, I get number one. That is ridiculous. And so it was in my age group, and which was fine. But then there was a list of all these other people, and I'm like, what does DNF mean? And there were pages of DNF. DNF was did not finish. People in their 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s. There were lists of people who just went and then they couldn't finish. And so I finished it. I didn't care how long it took me, but I did finish it. And I got a number one ribbon. And then I
Nice.
decided in March, no, I decided in February to run the LA Marathon in March. So I gave myself a month, and most of the training was just running a race here and there. And I did some soul cycle classes. And this is why I couldn't tell anyone, because people would think I was nuts.
Soul Cycle, yes. I've been, like I said, I've been a spin instructor. It'll be my 15th
Yeah.
year starting at the end. But the cardio, I love indoor cycling.
Yeah.
I love it so
And
much.
you got the music. You got the great music.
Absolutely, absolutely. So talk about, you also do TEDx, is that correct?
Well, that again, it's so funny. I always go back to this, but now it's kind of becoming a joke because my whole life has been accidentally with purpose. Someone interviewed me years ago in Unique Homes magazine for real estate, and asked me how I got into real estate and how I got into charity work and this and that. And at the end, she or he named it Accidentally with Purpose. So my whole life has kind of been how I published my first book was the same story, and the TEDx was the same story. What happened was I was on a podcast like this, and the host said, "What do you want to do with your book?" I said, well, with this book, I really want to travel the world and I want to inspire people and help people to achieve their goals. And no sooner had the book just come out, an agent who knew the host, she called me and she said, Debbie, I heard that you want to travel, you want to speak with your book. And I said, I want to be a speaker. And she said, do you want to join Keynoters? And I said, sure, as I always do. I'm always up for anything. I said, sure. And then I said, what's that? And she said, it's a speaking group. Some people are seasoned, some are new. It's just a group. We get together for an hour and we just learn from one another and share ideas. So no sooner, week later, I get on the call and this guy pops up and he's only there for like a couple minutes and then he leaves and it's an hour meeting. So I was like, am I hallucinating? He comes up and he says, if anyone wants a TED Talk, I can introduce you to someone. They're doing a TED Talk. The only thing you need to do is get yourself to South Africa. And then he was gone, and I was writing names frantically. And so I got off an hour later. I got off the meeting. I went to LinkedIn. I always preach to everyone, get on LinkedIn. I went to LinkedIn. I found him. I booked an appointment for 5 days later. He came on Saturday at 3:00, and my name's Debbie. I just joined your group. Would you consider really introducing me? He said yes, he did, and that was it. And I ended up going to South Africa. And the reason why I say accidentally with purpose, well, that being on that meeting and someone happening to hear me at the right time. I mean, we're on podcasts all the time. Not everyone hears us. And to have that connection, but also my first book in 2012 contained beauty photographs, reflections in swimming pools. My beautiful coffee table book, I have a photograph of Princess Diana and she's walking through the minefields in Africa. And it said, I admired her for all the good work she did around the world. And it was like, all of a sudden, I said, I have to go to South Africa. It's everything that I've been putting out there to the universe. It's coming to me now. And it wasn't like the podcast, the TED Talk was, they're all over the world, right? It happened to be South Africa. So I just, what you write down and what you put out there. Yes, I believe in manifestation and neuroscience and everything, but I also believe you have to activate.
Yeah, and when you said Princess Diana, I remember her walking in something with a helmet on or something like
Yes, that's
that.
the
Was that
photo.
it?
That's it.
Wow.
I didn't have a photo of her wearing a gown at some party or,
I remember the footage.
yeah, I have that photo of her. And I actually, I believe, because I was just watching something on her the other day, and I believe, if I'm not mistaken, that was just before she died.
Wow.
I know.
I'm big into history. I love looking back at history. I don't care what decade it is. I just like looking back, and when you said that, I remember her watch. She may have had like something
A
on
vest. Yes,
the
that's the
vest.
photo. That's the photo. And
Wow,
so
that's
I
wild.
get the chills every time. I was right when that happened, right when I heard when the guy said, and he went off, and then I didn't talk to him until 5 days later. But right after that conversation, I said to my son, because my son knows I have ideas and things happen and they materialize. I can give you a real concrete example that is always comes to mind because it's easy. I was talking, we hadn't seen a celebrity when he was like 10 or 12, and I was repeating the story because now Chase was back with me in LA and he was, 28. And I said, Chase, do you remember when we were at a restaurant, at a restaurant in LA? And I said, Chase, remember that when we saw Heather Locklear and David Spade and we heard his voice and it was so distinctive and we turned around and there he was. And I was just telling this, we were just kind of going through. Remember when we stayed in LA over Christmas and then literally right through the door, David Spade walked in like that.
Whoa.
So those are the kinds of things that happen to me. And Chase, my son, knows that it happens a lot. So when I got off the phone, the call, and I said, Chase, get my book, get my book. And I'm looking for the photo of Princess Diana. And I'm like, I have to go. It's going to happen. I'm like, it's going to happen. And I have to go. And I've never planned on ever, never really thought about going to South
Oh,
Africa. But yeah, it was pretty crazy. So you put it out there. Got to put it out there.
yeah, and I was getting ready for this. One of your, I guess your mantras or your mission statements for your customers or the clients that you have is it's not about the price you provide them, but it's every client and how you represent them. And I find that to be a great way of helping a client or a customer, great customer service.
Yes, luxury is a service, not a price point. I
There you
don't,
go.
yeah, luxury. We came up with that years ago because people would always say, "Oh, you do everything high end. You don't want to look at us." I mean, like and what I say is, you don't want to. We work in all price points, but obviously on your website, you don't want to put homes that don't look as nice, right? You want to put the nicer marketing photos online. So, my husband and I came up with that early on, and that has become our tagline. And we do serve people, not price. We work with people of all price range. And then if I have to go further with an agent, I might be coaching. I can use examples like, you never know who the gardener knows or the handyman knows who might refer you. And that's where we go beyond we love our service providers. We're only as good as the contacts we have. If we can't get a hold of our service providers, we're not it's it doesn't really help us in our business. So, I mean, I remember bringing champagne and chocolates to my plumber and going to meet the ladies that you don't meet, but you're on the phone with all the time, booking the appointments, right? So it's just being, well, the big overall arching is being kind to everyone, not just your clients.
Yeah, and I remember there was a commercial on TV. I think it was an investment commercial a few years ago, and one of the mottos of the commercial, one of the agents of the investor, the advisor says in the commercial, "People don't care how much you know until they know how much you care."
Yeah,
That like that's that made me look at things differently. And
yeah,
if you show that you care and you're just not in it to make a buck or
right.
push something through, people are going to resonate and have a connection. It's all about having a connection and rapport. And
Absolutely.
I think that is,
I mean, in your spinning class that you're doing, I mean, you're up there and people admire you for that and they want to connect. And so after you get done, you might be tired or have things to do, afterwards, but you need to stop. And I'm sure you do let them come up to you and have a conversation and be present for them, right?
oh,
Because
yeah.
they've been watching you and getting to, they know you, of course, more than you know them because you're up there, but just making the time for them after class just to spend time. And I'm sure you do that, but it's the same
Yeah.
example.
It's like for that hour, it's a social connection before class, during
Yeah.
class, and then after class, people are talking for 10 minutes and we all walk out together. So
Yes.
it's a great, I mean, I think having social connections keeps us young. I mean, you ran a marathon at 60. I mean, I'm going to be teaching spin at 61
I
and
know.
group exercise instructor. I mean,
Right.
what we do now will help us and benefit us as we
Uh,
get older. So
uh,
that if you want to go out and exercise, get out there and do it. It's never too late. I've been preaching that for a long time. So
And then even just for the people who it's hard, just, even if you just start by just walking, walking across, just walking a little bit, and then you can build on it. Just, you've got to start somewhere, and you've got to start.
yes. Well, this has been a great conversation, but I do have to ask you, you are the cousin of Joe DiMaggio. I cannot go with, I'm a big sports fan. My wife is a Yankees fan. I'm a Red Sox
Oh,
fan, but I find that fascinating.
I am cousins to Joe DiMaggio, and then of course Marilyn Monroe through marriage.
Wow. And brother Dom DiMaggio, right? He had a brother
Right.
who played
Yeah.
for the Red
Yeah.
Sox, if I remember correctly.
Right.
And he was known as the Yankee Clipper.
Yep. Yep.
And I remember when he had the 56, well, I remember video footage. I wasn't
Right.
around then, but I
Right.
remember when he had that, he took the baseball bat and cut through that 56 on the paper. That's an iconic video right there. So,
Crazy. The funny thing, I was talking with my publicist, and she would always want to bring him in, and I'm like, "Do we have to?" It's like, whatever. I don't really. I'm not. It's been a long time, but I know people love Joe DiMaggio, and so she's like, "Yes, we have to tie it together. Your people love that." And I said, "All right." So she was doing some research about the winning streak, and then she was like, "If he did, because he did a 56 winning streak, but then there was a game he didn't get one, but then he went on and did more, so it would have been like." It probably would have been today still, he would hold the record. But when she pulled out some information about him, I thought it was extremely interesting. She said he was so persistent and dedicated. And I was like, wow, we are definitely from the same cloth. I mean, I am a dog with a bone. If you ask me to do something, I will make sure I get it done. And he was extremely persistent. And I'm like, well, wow. So when my chiropractor asked me once, he said, is it Debbie or DNA? I said, it's got to be a little of both, because I can't say it's all me. It's got to be some DNA in there that's making it possible for me to do this sort of running.
yeah, and definitely probably if you had to go back and look at all the baseball players just based on center field for the New York Yankees, probably one of the top 5 players of all time. And I think he also came out with the quote, "It's a great day to be a Yankee." So I think that's fascinating, but I wanted to bring that up towards the end because I find that I wonder if people wondered, but that's amazing. That is truly amazing. So anything else coming down the road for you?
Well, here's one. An article just came out in the CEO Times, just went out yesterday. So I have a big goal. And the reason why I set this goal was, well, it came to me in an email, and I I've been getting a lot of AI stuff. We just get a lot of emails, especially when the book came out, and I don't know what's real or not. So I got this email and I responded and I said, are you real? Are you a real person? Is this a real thing? And it's called the Great World Race. And most people, even marathon runners, have never heard of it. It's 7 marathons in 7 continents in 7 days. And because I'm crazy, first I responded, and when he said it was real, I said, "Well, I've run one marathon. I'm not sure why you're calling me." But of course, it piqued my interest. So I said, "Well, I would need a sponsor." And he responded back and said, "Well, if you find a sponsor, let me know." And so then I responded back and said, "Well, just tell me where it goes and tell me about it." And so he responded, the continents it goes to, Antarctica being one of them. And so and then at the bottom, he had a whole list of all the information. And at the bottom, it said, or you can do a half marathon. And then when it said half marathon, I'm like, well, I can do that. No problem. I was kind of nervous about the full marathon. So what happened was I just kind of left it at that. But I shared it with that friend who's not a marathon runner, but he liked my story. And he was the one who told me about the 18, what happens on mile 18. And he happens to be an engineer and a founder of a company. And he said, "I want to help you." And I said, "What do you mean?" And he explained some guy raised money by selling squares to go to college. And so he showed me what it looked like. And so he took his engineers off of his platform he's working on, and he created DebbieRunsTheWorld.com, DEBBI, DebbieRunsTheWorld.com. And I said, I have to do something for charity. I can't just ask for money. So it's become this huge thing where DebbieRunsTheWorld.com You go to that, you can donate $25. You put because this is the reason for me wanting to do it. I want to prove that I could train, and this time I would train. I could train to do it. But whatever your goal is, I want you to train alongside me, whatever that goal is. So it's a $25 donation that goes straight to Girls on the Run charity. You write your website and your goal, and it's for you to be focused on your goal. And then we separated the site to DebbieRunsTheWorldPartners.com, which would be the sponsor
Mhm.
people. So what happened the other day, I was like, I got really sidetracked, of course, with the TEDx and some other book signings. I couldn't focus on
Mm.
anything else but the TEDx. And this race is in November. The physical part I'm not concerned with, but the raising the money I haven't been able to focus on. And so I thought, should I? And then the publicist wanted to write about it. And I was thinking, should I write about it? Because I'm not sure if it's going to happen this year. It might happen next year. But then, so I got all caught up in my head and I realized, well, that's just another example in my book. And that's called the pivot and adjust. And once you're going one way, something can happen. And then something else might happen, like the book and the TEDx. So I am working towards it. I'm talking about it. If it doesn't
Mhm.
happen this year, it'll happen next year. But I still want the message out there that I want people. You can still donate the $25 that goes straight to Girls on the Run charity. You put a spot right on, you pick a continent and then anyway, there's more into it, but you can do that right now and pick a goal and start working on your own goal. So whether it happens this year or next year, it's a conversation and it's going to spark what I talk about. What's the spark that ignites the fire in you? And so it's just part of the conversation and helping you and letting you know it's okay. Pick a goal. And if it doesn't work and it goes somewhere else, that's okay too. Things happen.
Yep, I'm gonna go ahead and donate $25, so thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
I
Thank
appreciate that, and,
thank you.
I will take care of that, but, what an amazing interview with Debbie DiMaggio. She's been kind enough to, join me. She's very busy, but we worked it into the schedule, and also, I really enjoyed it. She's an Amazon bestseller with Mindset in Motion that just recently came out. She has her own podcast, Mastering the Art of Success. She's a TEDx speaker. She runs a real estate company out in California. Massive success. Debbie DiMaggio, I'm truly honored that you came on my podcast. I really enjoyed our conversation. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I very much appreciate it.
Bye bye.